It's Friday the 19th of October 2022. This evening's show, we're joined by Charlotte Rigby from the Burnley pod, No Nay Never, to help us preview the first of many Lancashire derbies this season as the pool travel to Turf Moor for the first time since 2013, which is nearly 9 years ago. I'm John Asperall, this is Seaside's podcast, match preview show, Burnley versus Blackpool.
Ready to change the world, a small town from the north of England, with a great tradition.
Good evening, all you Blackpool and maybe a few Burnley fans out there this evening. Welcome back to Seaside's podcast match preview coming on a Friday now. Blackpool versus Burnley, one of many Lancashire derbies. Firstly, welcome Tim. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, Mitch, I have just had my holiday haircut. down to Richard's, the barbers, this morning. Nice short trim for the holiday.
Owen would love that, Tim, wouldn't he?
Oh, no, he'd have stroking my hair again.
Welcome, Sean. How are you doing? How's life been today on the presses?
It's been good. It's been entertaining.
Excellent. We'll also introduce Charlotte. Let's bring her up now. Welcome, Charlotte Rigby, to the Seasiders podcast from the No Nay Never pod. Thanks, Charlotte, for coming on. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Excellent. Right, Charlotte, so when we have new guests on from oppositions, Steve just said, bring on the Dingles. That's fighting talk. Charlotte, we normally get a bit about the opposition and a bit about yourself, why you're a fan of the club you support, etc. So let's get cracking with that. So, Charlotte, just want to tell us a bit about yourself, why you're a Burnley fan, how long you've been a Burnley fan, and how you ended up on the No Nay Never pod, and a bit about that pod as well.
Yeah, of course I can. So I was born in Burnley. I'm from a very Burnley family. If you try and support anybody else, you get thrown out. So it's very much, that's how I came into Burnley football. My dad is very much into football, as is my nana. And it's my nana who I go on the turf with. So it's very much a family thing. So that's how we've got involved and been a Burnley fan for as long as you can remember, really,
Right.
watching football. With regards to our podcast, we do analysis show, preview shows every week of the games. I tend to get on it. I got on it through Twitter, where we do a lot of we have a Twitter Clarets hashtag. We do a lot of our analysis on the game and things, and that's how I got onto it. I'm very, very new to the No Nay Never podcast. I've only been on for a few weeks this season, so new to the podcasting world as such, but thoroughly enjoying it so far.
Excellent. So, the No Nay Never pod, is that the main Burnley pod, or is
There's
that
quite a
the
few, there's quite a few podcasts. They all tend to do different things. We're very much a reaction podcast. We do have the analysis and things on there, but we're very much about the feeling and how we feel as fans and how we feel in reaction to the games and coming up, whereas some of the others might be more analysis based. We do have our analysis. We have our resident statman Dave, where he comes on and gives us the different types of stats. But so you have your
He's
own
ours.
as well. He's your statman Dave, statman Sean. So we do have our statman Dave who comes on the preview shows. We also have like our fantasy Premier League leagues as well. So there's quite a few things going on in the podcast.
All right, excellent. So you mentioned your pod's more about feeling. So how did you feel when Sean Dyche left Burnley? 'Cause it was a bit of a shock to the footballing world in general, wasn't it, when he left?
It was definitely a shock. I think there was quite a few people that thought it was time. There was quite a few people that saw it coming, but I think it was more timing wise that was the shock more than anything. I think we'd maybe accepted that maybe coming towards the end of the season, that might have been something to think about when we got to the end of the season, but it just happened. I think it was quite a few days after the game as well. You think if they're going to get sacked in relation to a result or things, it's pretty quickly after the game. But we'd played the game on the Sunday, I think it was, and it was further towards the end of the week where the news broke. And it was, I think it was Good Friday. I think it was Good Friday, and it was shocking that way. Feeling wise, well, I think I felt the same. It was a mix. Some people were like, "Thank God it's finally happened. We're bored of this style." I am very much nostalgic in that way. I was quite upset about it. A lot of my family were quite upset about it. He's done so much for the club, and we thought if he stayed, maybe some people thought if they stayed, maybe we had a chance. I mean, if you go down, he's one of them managers that give you a chance of going back up again. But I think it was because we didn't know what was going to come next. If you don't, in the unknown, it's scary, isn't it? But that's not to say that we're not enjoying it at the moment.
Yeah, you were touching on obviously the switching style, I guess, of Dyche, and now you've got Vincent Kompany, who's obviously complete polar opposite to really what Dyche was trying to do. I always thought that, as you said, I thought personally it was probably about time that there was a bit of a style shift and it all got a little bit stale. But how have you sort of received Vincent Kompany? He's very much, I watched his when he was speaking to the players when he first arrived, and I really sort of bought into what he was talking about there to them, and it does seem like he's going the right way about it, and he's very much, this is my way of playing, and you either buy in or you don't.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying seeing it. Like we say, it's completely different to what we used to. What we played in the Premier League was what we needed to play. It was very physical. It was very defensive. It's the way we needed to go into our games when you're going up against opposition like that. You find when we come down and we've got Vincent Kompany, we can play a much more possession game. We have less of the physicality, and sometimes I think over the last few games we've missed that. I think there's been circumstances where we could have done with being a bit more physical or not being so afraid on the ball. But that's not to say that his style isn't. It's so entertaining. I'm finding it very entertaining. To be a Burnley squad where you have 70% possession, 70% plus possession is unheard of for myself, really. And it is interesting. It's so good to see them playing out from the back, being able to pass it between and being able to keep hold of it. It's exciting to see where we go. And I think once we get that final piece, we're just being held back slightly in that final third. And I think once we get that, we could be onto a winner.
Yeah, I think the point I was just going to make there is kind of the point you made about the final third. There's been a lot of talk about needing a striker. I know that Kompany's kind of keeps referencing perhaps Scott Twine could play there when he comes back, or he could play in a 10. Is that really sort of the missing piece of the jigsaw for you? Obviously, you brought in the lad from Stuttgart who kind of can play a range of positions, but do you feel you need that 20 goal a season player to kind of gel it all together?
We've been talking about it a lot. I don't think we're going to be able to find a proven championship, a proven 20 goal a season striker. And obviously Kompany said that's not something that he's looking for. He's looking for goals coming across from the whole of the park, really. And I'm quite excited for when Scott Twine is fit. And I think if he does slot into that number 10 role behind, we will have someone who can get it into the box. I thought J-Rod were fantastic against Hull on Tuesday. And I think
J-Rod.
Yeah, J-Rod were fantastic. J-Rod Rodriguez, sorry for those of you who don't know.
I know you mean. Yeah.
Was fantastic on Tuesday. And I think if he's getting someone like Scott Twine, should be another goal threat. He was getting mobbed slightly on Tuesday, and as soon as he was getting into the box, there was 3-4 players on him. I think if you've got someone like Scott Twine as well, if we do want to bring in a striker, we need to bring in a striker, even someone that we can just rotate in and out of the team. Even if it's not a proven striker that's going to be starting every game, we need those options to be able to find the way that fits us to play going forward at the moment. And I think we definitely need to get somebody in, though it's not going to be a proven one.
So obviously you've had a good run in the Premier League. I think we've as Blackpool fans, we've looked on and thought, you've made a good fist of being up there. How are you feeling about being back in the Championship, and particularly how are you looking forward to all the plethora of derby games we've got this year? With Preston, Blackburn, Wigan, yourselves, ourselves, all in the same division. It's going to be made for quite an interesting season, I think.
Yeah, I love a derby game, and I'm definitely looking forward to having them back. It means so much more than just your average football game. You're either heartbroken or ecstatic at the end of it, so it's very much emotional. I'm quite excited about being back in the Championship as well. Obviously, you're gutted to get relegated, but if some people have said, the Premier League can feel like a bit of a circus at times. There's so much going on that's not necessarily football. And I mean, being able to celebrate a goal and not being scared that it's going to get ruled off 5 minutes later while you've been stood there for a VAR decision, that was one of the worst things while you're in the Premier League. And I think being able to actually have that emotion associated with it as well, and not having to wait and think, it's been ruled off now, that's completely just destroyed our feeling. I think that's definitely better. Some of the crowds and the stadiums as well, I love that type of stadium that you get in the Championship. It feels a lot more like the fans that are there because they really support the team, not that they're glory hunting, really. You get more fans that are based in the city or the town that they're in, and I feel that's more important to me sometimes. Obviously, that's not to say that we don't want to get back in the Premier League. It's the big time. There's a lot of things going on up there, but I absolutely love the Championship as a league.
Yeah, I actually penned in my questions. I think I actually put that word Premier League circus. I think it's like you say, it's got a hell of a lot worse since we were down there. Yeah, the VAR thing, I just can't. We've obviously never experienced it, but I can imagine it being particularly difficult, like you say.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. If it
goal.
worked properly and you could see where they're coming from, but you just think sometimes you think there's still so much bias in there and it doesn't work properly. They're drawing lines that look like a 3-year-old's drawn them with a crayon. You know, you have no idea what's going to go on, and penalties are being given, not given, and you think it takes a lot of the personality out of the game. Like, the officials are there. If they make a human error is one of them things. But if they've got all the screens to look at and then they're making an error again, then it's just really annoying.
Yeah,
I've got to say as well, last time I went to Burnley, I know Matt Williams, who used to be the basically the CEO at Blackpool, is obviously at Burnley now as part of your management structure, and he invited me to a game, and they actually had football tourists at Burnley. You know, they sort of come over from wherever it was in Europe, and I think that's a big feature of the Premier League games now. And listen, I can't say too much because I did it in Germany, but wherever you go in the Premier League, there's so many what I'd call non-team supporting fans. You know, they weren't there to support whichever team. Liverpool's one of the worst. You know, we go there at Liverpool, it's full of Chinese, Japanese, you know, wherever from all different countries, all just there for the experience. And for me, it dilutes what it's all about. And I think if that happens, you've got to be very, very careful that, you know, you're not selling your soul, because the soul of Burnley and Blackpool and all these other teams is the fans of supporting for donkey's years, and the Liverpools. You know, it's exactly the same with Liverpool. If you went to Liverpool in the 1970s, 1980s, everybody there was from the town, and now it's probably the reverse. They're probably in a minority, and I find that quite sad in some respects. So I think, but yeah, I went there and I got to chat to some guys, and they were just there because it was a Premier League game, and you know, you don't want too much of that going on for me. I think it's more about, you know, you're going to get a dichophony of sound tomorrow, Charlotte. You're going to get the Tangerine Hordes giving it plenty. So we'll make sure it's a great atmosphere. Hopefully you'll get involved as well, and that's what it's all about for me. I think I mentioned off when we were in the green room that back in, and somebody on the chat will tell me exactly which year it was where we played. I'm sure it was a Friday night, and we turned up and I said Blackpool fans, there's about 7,000 of us there, and the ground was packed, and it was in the old 4th division. We got beat as usual. I struggle to remember many games we've actually won at Burnley.
Well, I'd say I did put on my show notes. I've never personally ever seen us win at Burnley, and you know, late 40s now. And
we should have won when we got relegated for the Premier League. Holloway was had a monk on, because you know he was a bit up and down, wasn't he? And we turned up with a really negative team, and we ended up drawing 2-2, if I remember rightly. But if we'd started off the way we finished, we'd have won that game. But I really do. I went once, and I'm going back a long time now. When you were originally redeveloping the ground with the two stands that you created opposite the Bob Lord and the cricket stand, they'd been knocked down, and we were only allowed about 2,000 there. And I had to go in the Bob Lord stand. I'd pretend I was a Burnley fan to get into the game. And when Andy Priest scored, this is probably like 95, 96. Somebody, one of your lot behind me was like kicking the back of my seat for the rest of the game all the way through. But that we won that game. So I think that must have been 95, 96.
Under Worthington, people are saying Tim Junior Bent scored the winner.
Right. We definitely won when Andy Priest scored, and I think we won 2-0 that day. But that half the Bob Lord stand jumped up and celebrated when he scored. So I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one in there, because I think we'd only been given about something like 500 tickets or something, because it was a really restricted capacity that year.
Well, speaking of allocations, Charlotte, last time we've obviously been, we were in the cricket field stand behind the goal, and that was primarily for away fans, and I think we more or less filled it last time we went. Obviously, it's cut down the middle now, isn't it? Is that a kind of a hangover from the Premier League, so you can get more home fans in the stadium?
Yeah, I think it was kind of an atmosphere thing as well. A lot of the noise making comes from that kind of stand, but I think it is so we can get more. We didn't necessarily have huge attendances. We had pretty good ones for the size of the town, but I think it's definitely created a better atmosphere having that half of that as home fans as well. You can see sometimes it gets a bit too much between the two and they have to get the stewards involved and whatever, but I think it is a bit of an atmosphere creating thing as well. They do fill it. It's one of the first ones to sell out. It's one of the favourite stands to sit in, and they do fill it, and you have to be a season ticket holder to sit in that one. You can't just buy a ticket. Well, definitely last season, I'm pretty sure it's the same again, but it is one of the favourite stands to sit in.
So that's where the aggro is going to be, basically.
Yeah, that's where the aggro usually is.
So you've not bought like a load of flags to like community share around to create some atmosphere like Preston have down the road, because apparently they need flags to make noise.
I don't think so. I mean, I might turn up on tomorrow and it'd be completely different, but I haven't heard anything.
Where do you sit in the stand? Sure.
I sit on the long side, up at right on the halfway line.
Okay. That was where the atmosphere was when we used to go. I think Burnley changed. It was a brilliant atmosphere when there was that long side terrace. And I know quite a few Burnley fans, they all say the same thing, that it kind of killed the intimidating atmosphere and the atmosphere in general at Turf Moor when that stand got developed. Is that a fair comment? And can you remember that far back?
No, but I think from what I've heard, it's a fair comment. It's a difficult one. You see the cricket field end with the home fans, it curls round slightly onto the long side. It's a little bit more difficult to get the bob load on that side as well, close to the away fans, quite good. It's a little bit more difficult to get other stands involved. I think we have it's a family stand, so not everything that we sing is quite that appropriate. And then you've got like the director's box and things in the bob load, which obviously don't stand up and get involved. So it's very much a one-sided type of thing on that cricket field end, and the other stands quite close to it. You tend to get the most atmosphere there. On the whole game, it was good. There was quite a few periods where it seemed like the whole ground was getting involved, and it felt massive at that point. And you did see it kind of lift them slightly off the when they're on the pitch as well. When we were last in the Championship, it was called Fortress Turf Moor. That was what it was coined, and that's what it felt like. And I'm hoping we can get back up to something like that.
For those who don't, sorry, got to say, John. For those who don't remember, there was like a load of grounds at that time. That long side, it was like the best thing to have a massive covered terrace going right away down the length of the ground. Huddersfield had it, City had it. It's quite a few different stadiums have it, and it was the noise you used to get from the Burnley side was really quite incredible, and it definitely, I think, gave them a huge advantage when they used to play at home in those days, because it would it'd make your ears bleed listening to them when they got going. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
I remember one game when my cousins, half our family's Burnley fans, and my two cousins, Graham, if you're watching, his two brothers, and they were actually in there, Tim, on that game when it was like a war almost, wasn't it? When we had 6,000-7,000 there, and there's that no man's land, and I just saw him like giving it that from the away from the other side of the terrace. It was really fun. Yeah, it was a great terrace, sadly missed. Okay, Tim, on the questions. Question 5, I think we're on.
Oh right, I forgot. I've come off the question, so somebody else ask it.
Right, go on then. So Charlotte, are you confident you'll go straight back up? Given
I think
big
it's
turnaround of players, you've got 12 new players. It's sometimes a bit tricky, isn't it, to kind of rebuild?
It's definitely expectation on the relegated teams, isn't it, to go back up. It's one of the things. But like we said, we've lost a lot of our first team players. We still have quite a few of them still starting. We still have some of the spine, but we've lost a lot, and it's going to be a completely new team that's going to do it. It's going to be a new challenge for them. Obviously, I'm hopeful that we'll go up. People in Burnley won't like me saying this, but I kind of want to go up through the playoffs. They won't want the nerves of it, but I do remember going up through the playoffs, but not as well as I want to. And I know it's such a good experience. So if we were going to go up, I would want to go up through the playoffs. So I'm sorry, all the Burnley fans that wouldn't enjoy that type of situation, but it is something that, like I think we said earlier, it's the best time for us to be experimenting with the new team. I think we've come down. We have to we're going to lose our bigger players. We have to get new players in. It's a good time to be experimenting. It's a good time to find out what works for us. And hopefully, even though we've got all these new lads, like we say, the Championship's a massive slog. Even though we've got these new lads, hopefully by the time they're able to gel together and we're able to get a team that really work together and understand one another, and a formation that works together every time, because it feels like it changes every game that we play at the moment, then hopefully we do get those points on the board, even if it comes to, I think if we're anywhere near the playoffs by Christmas, that hopefully we'll get going after that. And the hope is always to go back up, even though I enjoy the Championship better sometimes.
I was just thinking then, actually, we've obviously the relegated sides. It does seem like there's a bit of a change in tack this year of how they're approaching the Championship compared to obviously last season. We had Fulham and Bournemouth, and they're spending big amounts of money. Look, Burnley have spent a fair amount of money, but they've obviously sold a lot more as well. They're going to experiment. You look at Watford with Rob Edwards; it's a young up and coming manager as well. Do you feel like that's sort of purposeful? Why do you feel like you've gone in that direction rather than what other relegated clubs perhaps have? Because if you look at the Championship this season, I couldn't pick out someone who's going to win the league at the moment.
No, I think maybe we've had our hand forced slightly. We don't know what the financial situation is with the club at the moment, especially with a very recent takeover. We don't know whether we have that money behind us to spend massively. So whether it is more of a forced situation. Plus, company has a very particular style of player, and you can see it in who he's brought in. And he has brought in the younger lads. It looks like he's trying to build a team more than anything. Obviously, we've brought in a few lads on loan, which might not be here come the end of the season, but it looks like he's building a team for the future. And if you're going to go and spend massive money now and to get promoted and then lose them all by the time you get into the Premier League, then what's the point? So I think maybe our hand's been forced slightly, but it also plays into company's way of playing, I think, by going at things in a slightly different way, getting younger players in, getting maybe players that aren't as well known, not spending loads of money and changing our style up, and hopefully that'll do well for us.
Who would do you think we need to look out for tomorrow then, Charlotte? So we'll talk to you a little bit about who we think our danger men are, but who's going to cause us some damage?
It's quite difficult to know at the moment, especially because a lot of our players are unknown to us. We've only seen them for a few games. We don't really know who's starting game to game either. But I think J-Rod looked fantastic on Tuesday, and if he can play like he did, I think he's going to be a danger man as long as we can keep him fit. Ian Matson's been fantastic on the wing as well. He's got man of the match a couple of games already this season, if not officially, definitely through our podcast. So he's definitely got one to watch there. We saw Nathan Tellis come on the Hull game, and we saw him for the last, I think, about 20 minutes or so, and he looked really bright as well. So if he starts, he might be one to watch. Danger man, really. And then looking towards the back, one that might not necessarily be a danger man going forward, but one to look at, I think, is Taylor Harwood Bellis. I think he's been fantastic. He's a young player, but he got man of the match on Tuesday against Hull, and he was absolutely fantastic. You were watching him, and he got better in the game, and he's got better every game, and he's got better as he's been playing. And obviously we lost Bemi and James Tarkowski over the summer, which felt like massive losses. Out of everybody, them two and Pope felt like the biggest because of the way we played. But I think if we can keep hold of Harwood Bellis, he's only on loan at the moment, but if we can keep hold of him, he'll be a massive player for us. And it was kind of like watching Tarkowski at times. I mean, I kept calling him Tarkowski, and that wasn't just the number on the back. My sister was getting really annoyed. So he's one to watch at the back. But going forward, I think it's more, if he starts, J-Rod, Ian Matson, and possibly Teller if he starts as well.
Okay, Charlotte, we've had quite an interesting comment come in from Nigel in the comments there. Obviously, we know who your main rivals are, but Nigel's asked Charlotte, who do you see Burnley see as a bigger rival than Nobbers or Blackpool?
It depends, doesn't it? I think at the moment, points wise, you guys, but we love a good derby, whoever it is. We obviously know who our biggest rivals is. It's not a game I'll be going to. away. I don't think you have to get bussed in. You have to.
Is that
There's
still
no
the
alcohol.
case?
Yeah, you have to get bussed in from Burnley. There's no alcohol on the concourse. It's actually quite boring to go. It'll definitely be on TV, so it's much better to watch. But definitely for the time being, you're the biggest rivals because it's you lot tomorrow.
Yeah, fair. That's a fair comment. I think obviously before you were born, as we were talking in the green room, Blackpool and Burnley locked horns quite regularly in the late 80s, early 90s, and there was quite a fierce derby relationship that we kind of built up with them at the time, and that's obviously dissipated since our paths no longer cross from 2013 onwards. But I think we're all looking forward to get this rivalry back going. Anyway, so Charlotte, just before you go, do you know anything about the current Blackpool setup? Obviously, you've been quite insulated from the Football League since you've been in the Premier League. But do you know anything about Blackpool, and have you got any idea of the sort of strength of players that we bring in our team or anything?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. I've seen that you've had a decent start to the season, but have you also picked up a couple of injuries? Is that right, with some key players? So that might force you to change the way that you're playing. You've not got. I don't know if you've got that many solid guys to get off the bench. I don't know if that's the case. That's usually the case with us. So I can only say what we are, but I don't know too much about you. But the way we've derby games, as we say, they never play out as they should anyway, do they? So it doesn't really matter who you got on the teams. At the end of the day, it's all about the feeling more than anything. But yeah, I've definitely seen that you've picked up a couple of injuries. I was having a look at that earlier. They're a couple of long term, aren't they? A few weeks and maybe a bit longer. Which it's a nightmare at the beginning of the season. I know when we were in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, if you pick up injuries, it can absolutely change your game.
They're obviously our two kind of central midfield players that we've been all crying out for pre-season. We've got two young wonder kids in from Premier League teams, and it's not one, it's two, isn't it, Tim? It's
they're both
at the same time.
I mean, if Charlotte, if you ever want a cringe moment, watch Patino, who's the Arsenal wonder kid. Watch his
ankle. I've seen it. Yeah.
Now he actually played the rest of that half, but obviously, as anybody who's played knows, as soon as you stop kicking a ball, your ankle just swells up, and that's what's happened with him. He's actually out about 4 weeks, but Farino, who is our other Italian-sounding central midfielder from City, he's out for 8 weeks. So between the two of them, it's disappointing because we look like we're just starting to get a bit of a blend together going, and they were the attacking midfielders with Kenny Dougal sitting behind them, and I thought we did quite well on Tuesday night, and then all of a sudden it's almost like back to the proverbial drawing board. So, but watch out for Bowler. Bowler will play on the right wing. He's probably, when he's on his game, the most exciting player, probably one of the most exciting players in the Championship to watch run with the ball, and he will undoubtedly cause you some problems. And then if Gary Medine plays, as Mitch, who's in the comments there, will tell you, guaranteed to score, apparently.
Super gas game change. It's Gary Medine. You may have heard of him. He's a bit of a cult here on the podcast. So, Charlotte, based on what you know and what you've just heard, give us your match predictions, and then we'll sign off for the evening.
Yeah, always hoping for a win. I think if we can go 1-0 up with our possession at the moment, we can hopefully try and keep that. It makes it quite hard for people to get hold of it if we manage to keep it. So I'm hoping for a 1-0 tomorrow.
I think I predicted 1-0 on the No Nay Never pod. They asked me for a bit of a vox
pop,
so I said 1-0
I hadn't even listened to it yet.
I think I actually forgot Sean Dyche's name at one point, so not really recommended watching. I didn't represent Blackpool fans very well there, but right. Charlotte, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks ever so much for joining us, and as ever, good luck for the rest of the season, apart from when we play you.
Same to yourself as well.
So thanks again, Charlotte. Cheers.
No worries. See you later.
Thanks. Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Right, Charlotte from No Nay Never. A very informed young lady. Excellent. Good to have.
Superb.
Yeah, it's good to have the fan interaction back, isn't it, on the preview shows? Right, let's move on to you, Sean. Tell us about the press conference today. Warts and all. Don't hold back.
Yeah, so there's quite a few takeaway points. I don't know if I actually put it in the Patreon chat of his full press conference from QPR, which kind of gives an idea about why I'm really sort of entertained every week with listening to what Mark Appleton says. He's very straight talking. He's no nonsense. He knows exactly what he wants. I think that's kind of starting to cut through for people that perhaps were unsure about him. I mean, he started with the Burnley thing of slagging off their finances and saying that all of this talk about their finances being an issue is nonsense with the amount of money they've sent. And I'm sure there'll be a couple of other bits that come out tomorrow as well. Obviously, he's spoken about Matty Virtue as well, which we'll probably come on to later on. But yeah, it's just nice to just listen to a guy that will just spill exactly what he's thinking at that point. And you've got no sort of, you're not second guessing anything because he's very straight up about what he wants. I think that's quite refreshing.
Hashtag no filter.
100%. And it's great. It's great. And that's what I think will win a lot of the fans that are unsure about him over, because for me, what did fans complain about Neil Critchley? They complained about the way that he spoke in press conferences, and he was a bit passive and a bit, a bit robotic sometimes, and they wanted a bit of honesty from him, particularly in games where perhaps we haven't played so well. And they also wanted us to try and play football the right way in an expansive fashion and stick on what we know, not what the opponent's about. And he's ticking all those boxes for me. So I should think that should win people over who perhaps were unsure about it.
It's interesting. I probably that press conference that you sent through was probably one of the first times I've really listened to him. Obviously, you see the written word sometimes, but you don't necessarily. I don't look at everything, and there probably is in other interviews I could have seen, but haven't. And I think there was a refreshing honesty in there. And I think, listen, it's easier to do a press conference when you've won 1-0 than when you've lost 2-0 or something, isn't it? But I've got to say I was quite impressed, and just as I was quite impressed with the way we played on Tuesday night, and I know some of the QPR fans were having a go at us for sitting back deep, but Jesus Christ, we'd lost two of our central midfield players, and we still nearly scored 2 goals in injury time. So at the end of the second half, didn't we? Where we had, so we can't say we're sitting back that deep, because we definitely had the opportunities later on. So I like I like the style of play, and I like the fact he'll take people off at half time, because there's nothing more frustrating when something's not right and that always happened with Critchley, didn't it?
We used to slag him off all.
You knew that if it was going tits up at half time and it was obvious he needs to make a change, he wouldn't make it till 60, 65 minutes at the earliest. And so you would go through the first 20 minutes of the second half just wasting that mid-time because the system wasn't working, or that particular player wasn't doing what you'd expect of them. And to be fair to Appleton, he just hooks them off. And they may not like it, but it's for me, it's good management. And
I was going to say the I think one of the key points for me was the last 5 minutes of that game when he brought Corbin on up top for Josh Bowler, and we were really needed an outball at that point, and he made that decision to take off a player that, if you were thinking of someone who's going to counter and score that second goal, it's going to be Josh Bowler, but he took Bowler off, and Corbin caused all manner of problems. I mean, he didn't quite know where his feet were doing half the time, but he got in the right positions, and we had 3 chances. Lavery should have buried that one in across the box in added time. We had 3 chances from that point. If you actually look at the expected goals, we made about 1 XG in that 5 minutes since Corbin came on, when for the 30 minutes before we hadn't really created a chance. And that's just smart, and that's him, as you say, streetwise and experience coming through, and he's not stupid. And like we've touched on before about the Swansea game, but for me, I thought we were very, very good against Swansea, and we were very unfortunate to lose that game. And it was essentially a carbon copy, just with the half switched for me against Swansea and QPR, in that we sat back a bit against Swansea in the first half to try and control those thirds. It didn't quite work particularly because he probably sat deeper than we initially wanted to. And second half, we came out aggressive, and we took that aggression into the first half at QPR. And then second half, when we had those injuries, we kind of had to change our style a little bit, but we were brave. And I think as well, the important thing for me is how well we seem to be defending the 18-yard box at the moment, because the trouble that we're having in chances is when we have made a little error of judgment or decision making when we're playing out ourselves rather than actually conceding chances from wide or from an opposition breaking through off their own accord. So if you actually look at the chances QPR created, none of them were really through their own doing. And for the main part, we defended our box really well. And Hector and Williams look like they're starting to build up a good partnership.
I was just going to say that because I had my concerns with Uncle Richard departing as to whether, particularly Marv looked a bit shaky in the first couple of games. It was more with his distribution than his defensive capabilities, to be fair. But I was a bit concerned about having them together. But the starting, I thought they were rock solid on Tuesday night. And I think Williams in particular seems to be coming on leaps and bounds. My Liverpool supporting mate we've had on here before, Kev, he said the big thing with Williams is he needs to man up. And I think a year in the Championship will man him up and make him a far, far better player, because it's the physicality, isn't it? You can play all this youth football and under 23 football, but you do not get the physicality that you get if you're playing with the opposition equivalent of Gary Medine, who's leaning into you and doing all the things that the QPR forward line were doing to them on Tuesday night.
Sinclair Armstrong, when he came on, was an absolute menace. Like, I don't know where they've got him. They must have built him in a lab, because he has absolutely every attribute that you could possibly want in a striker. And he was a real handful, but initially it took a couple of minutes, and then we dealt quite well with him as well, which was, for me, a real positive, because that's the exact sort of striker we struggled to play against last season. We had a lot of trouble with.
I think we were going to talk about the QPR in the news section, but let's just finish off what we're talking about here. Just generally, Tim, aside from what we've just been talking about, it was a brilliant result, and first time we've won at Loftus Road in 50 years, apparently.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a textbook. It wasn't a smash and grab as a lot of the QPR fans were talking about. I think it was a consummate away performance. It's known as.
Yeah, I think you look at it, and I've got to say the first 10 minutes, I was more than a little worried, because it looked like we were going to get overrun. But then we started to, for me, as you know, sat there watching it with your beer, I could see us getting to the game. I could see us having more chances. You start to see Patino probably have his best phase of football for us, I thought. It was interesting. He really seemed to, and I don't know where Sean picked him up, but he really seemed to just be sat behind that front three, didn't he? And he was able to dictate a lot of the play from that. I mean, he's got this fluidity for me of his game that I really like to watch, where he'll pick up a ball and almost seamlessly change.
He's so nonchalant, isn't he, in the way he just glides past people? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and also the way he moves the ball from his left foot to his right foot if he's changing direction. He's clearly a class. He's going to be a class player, and it's so frustrating. But after he's had his little blip,
typical.
And it's not like he's been tackled. It's nothing, is it? It's like an innocuous scenario that anybody who's played football's had. But when you're an 18-year-old lad, it's normally the old hacks whose cartilages have gone, like me when I was about 30. Like, you'd run down the pitch and your ankle would go, and you think, oh bloody hell, and then you're out. But not when you're 18, and not when you're not being tackled, and it's so frustrating for us, and no doubt so frustrating for him and Arsenal. Whether he should have come straight off is a debate. But he seemed. I thought he'd run through it, and then just towards the end of the first half, you could see he was actually limping, and I thought, oh, he's not going to come out in the second. But yeah, really, really impressed with him. Really, really impressed with, again, Thompson at left back. He's just so tenacious. I just love that little. For me, he goes in to try and win a ball, which most of the players, fullbacks, would hold off on and hold the ground. He'll just go in, and now sometimes he could, because I thought he had a torrid first 15, 20 minutes. But at the end of the day, I just like the fact that he's not scared, and he'll just go in and he'll tackle. Connolly had a great game, and then we've got Gabriel back. I was quite the champion of having Connolly and Dougal together, but having seen it in the second half, I think it's probably a little bit too defensive. But whether it's something we'll try in the next few games and try and push one of them slightly further forward. I don't know, because of course when Connolly's come on, he's been shoved in there all of a sudden at the last minute just to plug a gap effectively. Where if you've actually got a more structured approach to it, and Appleton's talked through a game plan, which I think, because I think Connolly's has got the ability to drive forward. I don't know. I don't know what Sean thinks, but I just felt we let them come on to us a bit more as soon as we went to that too defensive, and I can see the arguments against it now a lot more than I perhaps could do before I watched that.
I think it's difficult because I don't think we're able to press as aggressively as we did in the first half for 90 minutes. I just don't think that's sustainable at the moment, especially with the lack of depth particularly in central midfield. I'd quite like to see Connolly play the 8. I said it a couple of weeks ago. I think he's got that knack of arriving in the box at the right time, and I think it's worth trying. But I also think the way that Burnley play, I mean, we thought Swansea were possession heavy. Burnley's lowest possession start at the moment is 65%, and that was away at Watford. So it kind of tells you how much they dominate the ball. And as Michael Appleton was referencing today, they move it at pace as well. They're a lot quicker than Swansea. So to be honest, I think we probably will have those, similar to the QPR game, we'll have phases where we do go on the front foot, we'll have phases where we sort of sit back and control things. And I think sort of alternating between the two is quite good. But because we obviously have these 2 injuries now, I don't see someone that's going to carry the ball. And I think that's my concern for tomorrow, is that I look at the central midfield options at the moment, and I don't see someone that's going to take the ball and drive 20, 30 yards up the pitch. I think Patino and Fiorini have the capability to do that, or to thread a pass through that takes us straight up the pitch. I'm not entirely sure we have those options, and I think that's my concern for the Burnley game.
Okay, and Sean, that nicely segues onto our team picks, our Burnley 11. So let's get the old team pick up on the screen, not that view. So based on what you've just said, and based on the fact that my 4-3-3 app doesn't really reflect the correct positions of the central midfield players, maybe we should go to more of a defensive kind of 4-2-3-1. Give us your thoughts on how we should line up formation-wise against Burnley.
This is really difficult. I predicted that we'll go 4-2-3-1, but I think I would quite like to see us play with 2 8s and put Connolly further forward.
What does that mean in layman's terms?
So we'll have, you know how we've got Dougal sitting, and then you've got Patino and Fiorini as the 2 further forward. We'd have Connolly and Carey, and then Dougal sitting, rather than having Dougal and Connolly together, and then Carey as a 10. I don't think Carey can do that on his own against a side like Burnley.
That's it. That layout though works though, because
it does.
when you've got Bowler and let's assume it's Lavery on the side, they are playing a slightly deeper role than the forward. So I think it works for the layout of what we're talking about, even if it is whether it's a 4-2-3-1 or where you look at it as a 4-3-3. I think we can work with that layout, John.
Yeah. Okay. So. From front to back, then start to end. Grimmy's shoeing, isn't he? In that, no one got any.
Superb on Tuesday night, by the way.
Oh, that save he made when was it Dougal? Leanne will love that when Dougal cocked up in possession, lost the ball, and their man was through a 1-on-1. I do think he shouldn't have played it into.
I do think he shouldn't have played it into him in the first place. I really do. It was awful ball to him.
So you're blaming Grimmy then, really?
I'm blaming Grimmy, not Dougal.
It's funny how quickly
up in the comments. So, give us your thoughts on that, Leanne. Whose fault was it? Grimmy's or Dougal's?
It's funny how quickly it's turned that we're now Dougal's the first name on the team sheet, pretty much for me in central midfield. So it shows how much he's rode the challenge.
It's good to see Kevin in the chat anyway.
It was Dougal's fault. Told you it was. Club Kenny. Right, anyway, Grimmy's in net. Sean, right back. Again, Connolly. Does that pick itself? Gabriel's back in contention, though.
Yeah, Gabriel will start for me. He's ready to go, and we don't have the options in midfield. I don't think he's going to play Matty Virtue from the start. From what he was saying today, he's pretty much said that if we get the options in, then Matty Virtue will go out on loan. I think it'll be Gabriel and then Connolly in central midfield.
We don't care what he thinks. It's
And
our
that's
team.
what I think
keep saying
you've got to
this.
pick Gabriel. You've got to pick Gabriel, surely. If he's fit, he plays.
Tim, do you concur?
I do concur. So,
In fact,
motion passed.
I actually agree. So we've got hat trick. I forgot. I've got this little sound effect that I can play while we're picking our Burnley 11. And it's on a loop as well.
For those of a certain vintage.
We were trying to explain what this was to Charlotte, but
Went
obviously
completely overhead, didn't it? Trying to explain a 1950s American show and how that links in with her hometown. Didn't work.
Got it nicely looping. Right, the two centre halves. I'm putting
Pick
Spud in
themselves.
there straight
Pick
away.
themselves, don't they?
Is it picking
themselves,
itself?
I think.
Okay.
You can't drop Williams after the way he played on
No.
Tuesday night.
John's Williams' agenda has got to pass for another week for now before he finds a way to drop him next week.
Come on, make a mistake. No, I'm joking. Left back, I think defence picking itself, isn't it?
I
do
don't
wonder
think
how.
so.
Sorry.
Go on, Sean.
No, I was going to say, when will Husband get back into the team the way Thompson's playing? Because obviously we've got another week's break after this. We've not got a midweek game, so when does Husband get back in?
Is he fully fit now as well?
Yeah.
I like Husband, but I don't think he's as good. I don't think he's as aggressive as Thompson. And it's for me, it's Thompson's aggression that the way he moves over that first 3 or 4 yards. When I love having this in the background, by the way. That 3 or 4 yard, the way he moves is superb. The first and it's that quick reaction that I like.
What's this song? Where have you been, Leon?
You can't even hear yourself think when you're trying to make a point.
You're not old enough, Leon. I thought you were 40 now. You should know the Beverly Hillbillies.
That's what they call them now.
You can't keep pretending you're 20.
Come back, yeah?
Black goal, Texas T. Right, boys, centre mid. Dougal and Connolly.
I think so for this game.
Anything on that? Sean?
Yeah, I'd play Connolly further forward in a 4-3-3, but I'll go with the two holding. I think we'll swap between the two, a bit like we did with Reading, where Dougal came on, didn't he, in the second half. I think we'll kind of start the first half that way.
Okay. I think we're all in agreement, aren't we? Connolly and Dougal, two holding midfielders.
I think it will work if they're possession based as well. I think actually having the two defensive will work better than perhaps it might do in a more sort of possession even game, if that makes sense.
Okay. Right, Sean, talk us through these three forward line players. Are we sticking Bowler on the right to start with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was class again against QPR. I thought he was very good against Swansea. I didn't particularly get the flack. I mean, we all know that he makes the odd bad decision. So I thought that was pretty ridiculous, to be honest. But and you know me, I've been critical of him in the past, but that's what we get with Josh Bowler, and you just have to take it. But I think it's a massive few weeks for Sonny Carey, because he's got this chance now, and with the two injuries, to really put himself in the picture. And if he doesn't, then obviously we'll have to see where he goes from here. He's only had like 8 starts in the Football League. I kind of forget how new he is to this football, but it's a massive few weeks for him. So he'll be in the 10, and I'd pick him in the 10.
Or the 9 on that. Or the 9 on this pitch.
Yeah. And then Shane Lavery on the left, because he's been brilliant the past 2 games.
Tim?
I don't think there's any viable option other than Carey, and I do like him. And like Sean says, I'm still surprised he's only played 8 games. You think he's been around a lot longer, don't you? And he's going to need good support. He's going to need good support from Connolly and Dougal. He's going to need good support from Bowler. And it's great. And listen, I just want to say it's fantastic that Bowler did play the game he did on Tuesday night, because I saw that Pratt who slagged him off when he came off. And listen, he's one of the best players we've had in a Blackpool shirt in the last 10 years for me. And and holding him over the coals like that to the point where he feels he needs to come out and apologise on Twitter is a disgrace, and I'll call it out for what it is. So fantastic to see that, and I'm looking forward to see how Carey gets on.
I mean, with Bowler, it was the perfect response to that guy who took it upon himself to go and fucking have a go at him.
And hopefully he'll go and apologise to him. I don't think he will, but if he had any guts, he would do. And you shouldn't call out players like that. Listen, he made a mistake. There's plenty of players make mistakes on football pitches. You don't call it. You don't do that to them. Not a player like Bowler who literally has been one. Listen, since the likes of Charlie Adam left our football club, he's the best footballer to watch that we've seen, and we've spoken about this time and time again. Even as frustrating as it can be, it's a pleasure to watch. Not many fans of any club get to see a player run at players like the way he does. And it's a joy to watch. And why would you castigate somebody who does that? I don't get it. It's just
to be honest, Tim, I think you're doing Armand Nangelay a real disservice here. But I think another point of the straight talking Michael Appleton thing was how he came out and defended his player, and he basically said, "What are you even moaning about? The appearance, the things that he's done for Blackpool, moments of magic that he's created. This club would have been a lot worse off last season without him." And again, it's another example of him, telling it like it is, whether people like to hear it or not. He was bang on again.
Okay, so I think motion carried for Sonny Carey in the central attacking midfield role in the cam. I believe that's what you hipsters call that position, Sean. Must get his name right anyway. I kept calling him Oliver Casey at one point. Damn whoever bought two players with similar sounding names. Left side of this wolf pack, Shane Lavery.
Yep.
That he was fantastic again. He was another player who had an exceptional game. Even when I know things aren't necessarily coming off for him in front of goal, but his work rate off the ball, he looks like he's getting he looked a bit stodgy and a bit unfit at the start of the season, but I think he's getting his fitness back now. We're not quite seeing that explosion of pace that we saw before his injury, but hopefully that'll come back. Hopefully he's going to find the back of the net again. It could be a little bit like Jezza, I think, where he needs that goal really to.
He's snatching, isn't he, Tim? He's snatching at chances.
Yeah,
now.
and he's leaning back. He's but like that one that at the end he was like leant back, and it's like. You tell your 8-year-olds not to lean back when you're taking a shot and just get over the top of the ball and use your laces. And he was snatching, and that's probably a lack of confidence. But I think what we're seeing more from him now is we're seeing the work rate. When we see the work rate, the rest will come. The rest will come. And when it will be on Saturday, whether it be another game, I don't know. But for me, he's worth having in the team just for his work ethic.
I think in the last two games as well, he's been more disciplined in the way he's pressed. I always felt he was a little bit too erratic, a bit too keen to just aimlessly run around like a bit of a headless chicken sometimes, whereas he seems to be more intelligent about the way he's doing it, and that allows him to preserve it for the full 90 and pick the right moments, which is important.
Ironically, Tim, you saying 8-year-old snatch at chances, lean back and don't use the laces. It was Shane Lavery who was telling our 8-year-olds, as he was our Tangerine teammate, to use your laces and not lean back. Down at Polton FC.
Just do what I say, not what I do, John. You should know that by now.
But Shane makes it in the team. Right, who's going to be the fulcrum of this attack?
Don't even try it.
I'm being serious, Sean.
It's Jerry Yates. It's 100% Jerry Yates because he's been brilliant as well the past two games, and I always make the point that I think there's not a player in the side that has the same movement and intelligence in terms of the way he plays as Jerry Yates does up top. And I mean, you've seen how we've linked through the thirds against QPR and Swansea with him up top. It's a no-brainer for me.
His best contribution on Tuesday night was not touching the ball. But I don't mean that facetiously. I generally mean that the build up to Bowler's goal. How many players would have touched that ball and the offside flag would have come up? He had the wherewithal to know I can't go anywhere near that. opens his legs, let the ball, there's the ball through his legs, holds his hands up. He's not interfering with play. We score a goal, and that's actually using your football brain, and it was a great contribution in a slightly unorthodox way.
Is it contrary to another certain player who kicked a ball that was already over the line and was deemed offside against QPR last year? If anyone remembers that.
I'm sure Matt could help us out on that one. Matt, who was that? No, but I wasn't being facetious when I said that was his best contribution, because he had lots of other contributions. But you could see his brain was thinking, and that's what you want from an intelligent footballer. He was thinking, I touched that, we're out. He lets it go, goes through to bowler, cuts inside, second, two goes at it, but buries it, and we're 1-0 up, and we didn't look back from that.
Okay, the majority has spoken. Jerry Yates makes it in. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the team that's going to beat Burnley on Saturday. And to finish the show, gents, obviously that's the team that's going to win the game. But by how many, or are we going to win? So over to our predictions to see the show out. Sean, your closing thoughts and your match prediction.
I'm hoping that we're able to frustrate them, because you've seen in recent games that they have been a bit frustrated, Burnley, in terms of trying to find the goal, and they are missing that killer instinct in front of goal because it's such early days for them. It's such early days for us as well, but we seem to be getting it together. You don't know how we're going to play without those two midfielders. That's the thing, isn't it? It's very unpredictable, I think. But I'm going to say 1-0 to us, and then we'll frustrate them for the rest of the game.
What I would say is the last time that we were 5-1 to win away, which apparently we are on most bookies' websites.
6 in some, 6 in others.
6 in some. Was Sheffield United.
Sheffield United. And we all cleaned up, didn't we?
We did. So I shall be having a little bet tomorrow, and I shall be crossing my fingers for a 1-0 or maybe even a 2-0 win. If we get a 2-0 win, it's early payout as well. So on Bet365, we go 2-0 up, we win. So I'll be having a tickle. Let's put it that way. And I hope that it's not money thrown down the drain. So hopefully, I'm going to go join Sean and go for a 1-0 win. I'm known for being pessimistic, but I'm going to be optimistic on this occasion.
Yeah, I've already staked my claim on 1-0. Like I said,
and Joe's got whatever he's got, so he's not there. So that's another reason why we might win the game, because he's going to miss it.
So
Joe, just think you can sit at home on your phone all afternoon rather than be at the game and do it.
Oh, that's mean, Tim. That's mean. You're a big meanie. Alan Taylor says 1-1. As does Gary Hebbs. And B 3-0 to the Pool. Leanne 2-1 Blackpool. Matthew Warrender 2-1 Pool. Marv, last minute winner 2-1 Blackpool. There's a lot of positive Blackpool fans there, so you know what's going to happen, don't you?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how insufferable I'm going to be with my Mark Appleton is amazing agenda when we win like 3-0? It's never stop.
Mitch says 2-1 Blackpool. Medine with a brace. Man after my own heart. Finally, we've got some. It's not cheating saying 3-1. Possibly a Burnley fan. Michael Preston says 2-0. But a lot of optimism going into this game, when there was a hell of a lot of pessimism after the Barrow game. And it's strange, isn't it, how one good result away at QPR can change the whole mindset of a football club.
It is. That's what. But fickle football fans, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yep.
But we do live by our emotions, and and I think actually when you listen to the interview that Sean put out, maybe we could put a link on it in here or something. I don't know, but Michael did say, didn't he, that we weren't as bad at Barrow as everybody thought we were. And if you actually do analyse it, we had shed loads of chances. The problem is we had the wrong players on the pitch, particularly on the left-hand side, to actually convert those chances. So, I don't think we could, we dominated possession. We just didn't score. QPR, we had the best chances and didn't score. Did I say QPR then on that first
Swansea,
one?
yeah, Swansea.
I meant Swansea, and then on Tuesday night, listen, it could have gone the other way, but it went our way. But the point being, is at the end of the day, we've got 6 points out of 12. We keep this up.
We're ahead of Burnley. We're ahead of Burnley.
Yeah,
we're quite ahead of them.
So we keep that up, and we end up. Have we got 6 points out of 12 or 6 points out of 9? I've lost how many games we've got.
6 out of 12, yeah.
6 out of 12. Got 6 out of 12. We'll keep that up. We stay up, don't we?
This is the thing as well. I think like Mitch says, you need to stick with them because you've got to look beyond performances as well. If we do go and lose 2-0 tomorrow, but we put in a good performance, it can't just be back to what it was at Swansea, because we played well against Swansea and everyone was slagging him off. Well, not everyone, but quite a lot of people were slagging him off. You've got to look beyond the performance. We're in the very early days here. It's a long process. And as much as people want to nip at everything that Michael Appleton wants to do to some extent, some people are like that. It's pretty pathetic, to be honest. But what are you going to get out of that? What are we going to win here with just constantly sniping at everything that he's doing? Just get behind it. It's your football club, and eventually it's going to come good, because at the moment the signs are positive. And you think about the fact that he still wants 2 or 3 more additions into the squad, the fact that we still think we've got additions to make into the squad. It's a long way off where we want to be, and it's already pretty positive signs. So stick with it.
Well, it's not that long ago. I didn't actually go to the game because I was on holiday, but it was West Brom away, and probably one of the most iconic scenarios at the end of the season was the support the team got at the end of the game after they'd lost the game 2-1, and we've got to keep that going and turning on the team and booing them off. I mean, I ended up with a 300. It did go for a bit of a tangent, but I ended up with a 300 odd thread post on AVFTT because I was embarrassed stood in that stand with people booing our team around me when we narrowly lost a game against Swansea at home that arguably we could have won, and we're in the Championship. We've got no divine right to be in the Championship. We've got no divine right to be anything, and to boo them off, and for some to be slagging Bowler off, and I honestly, I thought
that guy having a go at Simon Sadler as well. What a cock!
What the fuck? Oh, I even forgot about that. And listen, the guy's come in, and I said that on the point. He's basically realigned his life to own the football club, and listen, that means involving moving his whole family to a different continent, moving the whole operations of his business to a different continent, spending, and I know how much time you have to spend being involved in a football club, spending probably 40 hours a week on top of his 40, 50 hours he'll be doing his day job running Blackpool, shoveling money into it, and then some prat goes and fucking gives him a lot of shit because we're losing 1-0 at home to QPR in the last couple of minutes.
I'd use a stronger term to describe whoever that was. It's a fucking dickhead.
What planet is that person on? And Andy's talking about building a new training ground. Andy's talking about developing the East Stand. Not talking. And when he talks, he does. So he's talking. I'm thinking it's not just about the money. It's about how much time he gives to it. And I've got the utmost respect for anybody who does that, because I've, as I said, in a short window, I've done it and I know what impact it has on your life. And I just think, Jesus. They haven't got a clue. It was probably somebody who never gave. Listen, I'm going off to kill it. It's somebody who probably never boycotted. Yeah. Thought they were different. I'm a special person. I've got particular reasons to go to the ground, and hasn't got a brain cell. That's all I can think. Because
I was going to say, if you look at what block they're in, and think about where the boycott, the people who stayed during the boycott, what stand they were setting. That's all I'm going to say on that. It's pretty much nailed on, isn't it? That they were someone that carried on.
But what worries me is that Simon takes that to heart and realigns his position again, because What? Who wants to put up with that shit? I wouldn't. Anybody.
This is the issue, isn't it? It's the fact that they do take that into account. They are, it does upset people. It upset Josh Bowler. Mark Lopperton got flack in the dugout, and he came out, and Mark Lopperton ain't going to take any shit, so it's okay for him. It's anything off his shoulder with the amount of crap that he's had in the past few years. But
well, see, when loads of people are booing as well. When loads of people are booing as well, then that's almost like that. Then you might get the impression that's actually what people are thinking. If there's 5,000 of the 89,000 left in the stadium, I couldn't believe how many people left before the end as well. But that's another matter. But 8,000 people say half of them are booing, and then somebody starts whatever he did, chucking stuff or saying something. I don't quite know the full story, but as the person who's on the receiving end of that, you're going to feel like everything's closing in on you. And I'd like to think it's nothing. It's the absolute opposite. I mean,
Appleton said he was stunned by the fact that they were booed off the park because he, like us, saw that it was a very good performance against Swansea. We were unlucky, and I just think there is a section of the fan base that need to get a grip of themselves and realise that you support the football. Take a step back. Where you getting I don't get where people are getting the enjoyment out of it. I don't get where's your enjoyment of going to the football match and just slagging everything off and saying it's all shit. I don't get how you could possibly enjoy that, and that's what I don't get. It's just bizarre to me that you wouldn't be invested in the project. Now it's happening. Just you buy into it. That's natural. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't get how you can possibly go to football and just slag
I think the
everything off.
terminology supporter, if you look it up in the dictionary, suggests that you support what's going on, and turning up to something and then just ripping it apart and slagging it off and trying to undermine it is the absolute opposite of what you should be doing.
And let's be honest, look at some of the shit Neil Critchley served up in the last 3 months of his tenure and the complete backing that he got. I mean, after 5-0 at Peterborough, it wasn't like it was at the end of the Swansea game. So I don't get it. I just don't get it. I think it's pathetic. And you know what? This is the thing, because this is what the issue for me is that, great, we got a result against QPR, but say we go and lose 3-0 and we're not great on tomorrow, then what, is everyone just going to do a 180 again? Like, you need to just stick with it now, regardless.
Exactly.
So the lad that's been banned for 3 years for holding a smoke bomb, if he's been banned for 3 years, what sort of a ban should this tosser get for screaming? I think they should reverse it. Let the smoke bomb lad off and give this knobhead the 3-year ban. How's about that?
Yeah, look, no one's saying that you shouldn't obviously criticize things, but to literally go and abuse someone is just mindless crap. Whereas obviously, we have got genuine criticisms of the ownership and the things that they're doing. Like we talked about ticket prices. Some people have the thing with the mascot thing. There are genuine critiques. They're just
gripes, aren't they, Sean? They're just gripes.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, they're not like suing your own supporters.
Yeah, exactly. The bigger picture here is that we're so much better off. We're building things for the long-term future, and we are. Everyone is, even the most critical of Simon Sadler, understands that he's clearly the best owner for the football club. That's just how it is, and that's where I think sometimes when there are these mindless idiots that are then doing that, and then there's people doing little bits of critiquing here and there, it all gets put into one pot, and we need to kind of disassociate the two things. There can be genuine criticism of the ownership, but they can't. This mindless crap that seems to be coming from a section of the support is just nonsense.
Yeah, as Leon just said there, Sam Sadler is one of us. He is. People seem to forget that. He's not a faux Blackpool fan that's been supporting the club since he was, what was it, Tim? 2 years old.
2 years old.
2 years old.
There's a comment further up about, surely we can all have opinions. Yes, you can, but I think there's a difference between having an opinion and then booing the team off in the manner that they were booed off. And secondly, then, are they either physically or verbally, depending on which version you hear, physically or verbally admonishing the owner for the fact that we've had the temerity to lose the game 1-0 in the Championship.
But this is
we should have won. We should have won.
We should have won.
There's room for opinions. Yes, like I said before, there's room for like genuine criticism of some of the things that have happened over the summer. But the opinion that Michael Appleton is crap or Simon Sadler is a crap owner. It's just a wrong opinion. It's not. It's like we can debate that if you'd like, but you'll lose that debate because there's not really much evidence to point to either of those things being the case. It just seems to me like there's just agendas that people. This is the thing with general society, isn't it? If you have an agenda, you're either open enough to be able to change your mind, like I've probably done on this podcast about 150 times. I've flip-flopped on opinions, but at least I think all of us on here are able to admit when we've had an opinion about something that ends up not being the case.
Lower League One donkey,
Richard Keogh as well. Like we all do it, but there's this mantra from people that you have to stick by your opinion for all counts, regardless of what happens. And I just don't get how people have the time for that. I really don't. It's pathetic.
Okay, so we'll just sign off then this evening, ladies and gentlemen, with this final comment from Gary Hebbs. Well said, boys. Simon has revolutionised the club from top to bottom. Some don't realise how lucky they are. Great comment that, Gary. And I think people just need to take a deep breath sometimes at the end of games and just think about what you're about to say. Take 2 deep breaths and just think things through before you start screaming abuse at the wrong people.
And let's all support them tomorrow, whatever the score is tomorrow. Let's get behind the lads. Let's give them plenty because we're playing the Dingles away. And listen, the last thing that we want to do is turn on our own. Everybody behind them, eh?
No Tommen's giving us the finger on the way out of the tunnel either.
Well, we'll just leave it this one. The Sadler abuser wore a man bag. Enough said, Dennis. Right.
What's wrong with man bags?
Do like and subscribe anyway if you like this. Hit the notification bell, all that bollocks. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for all the comments. So as we said, come on the pool against the Clampets. Come on. Go on the pool.
Come on.